When I think of social media and anxiety, I mean, holy moly, that's like a loaded question. Personally, what's affected my anxiety the most is the amount of negativity that I see. There's just literally too much. Like, I find that the more I'm looking at a screen, the more detached I feel with my own body or to like what's happening right in front of me. My relationship with social media is, a bit addictive right now, which I don't like, and I'm not proud to say that, but I also feel like that's something that probably most of us can relate to. Like, I don't like that I feel the need to have social media in the first place. There really is like no escaping it.
There's plenty of research out there that really demonstrates that social media acts very much like an addiction. It stimulates the same part of the brain as substance use. So when you think about it, you are always looking for that positive reinforcement.
Right.
The idea of what could happen, whether you're gonna get a like or whether somebody's gonna repost you, really keeps you coming back very much like an addiction.
Right. I don't know, is that something just as society we're conditioned from like a very young age to like feel like we need that validation?
That sense of not getting that enough positive reinforcement from our home environment, not feeling rooted, allows us to really look outside of ourselves for a reward. And I think that social media really pulls for that.
It's so interesting that you say that, because a lot of the feedback, if it is negative, that I've ever gotten is like, oh, you're setting a bad example, or this is horrible, that I wouldn't want my kid to see this. Or
what do you think when parents say, for example, to you, when they say, you're setting a bad example for my kids?
I don't know how much you know about my family or us, but there's an assumption of the kind of people that we are or who we are that I could say pretty confidently is pretty inaccurate. I mean, we have a reality TV show, so a lot of people know a lot of our lives,
yes.
but I think that there's still such a lack of actually knowing our character, who we are.
When you think about even a reality show is going to show the highlights of your life, right? And when somebody really thinks about like keeping up, how do you keep up with the Kardashians, right? It is obviously either can be used as a motivation to be your very best, or it can be used as an impossibility. If somebody's really struggling with identity issues and with confidence issues, the idea of keeping up with this image of somebody that you admire may really seem impossible. And perhaps that's part of the sort of rationale as to why for some folks,
you can check me, by the way. You can totally sit here and be like, this is what people think.
Can you give me an example of a time where you kind of have would highlight a peak moment of anxiety that is related to social media for you?
Something that like boils my blood, that like really frustrates me and like I think upsets me the most is when it's someone claiming a false narrative for me. The internet, I guess, bases things off of such small moments with no context. They don't know the before or the after, and they'll take that and run with it and then completely judge you based off of this one little thing.
Well, that's the thing. I think there's a certain loss of control of your own sense of self. And I think that people can kind of edit it to fit their own purpose and to fit their own sense of reality or lack of reality. And then you just become like a canvas upon which people project their own stuff onto. And it's got to be really difficult. I think that that's probably very similar to what children feel when they're bullied online. You post something and then somebody can take something that you might give them and really distort it in such a way that comes back as very aggressive.
I pride myself on being a pretty decent human being. Like, I don't think I'm a bad person or anything, so I'm not saying it's something actually bad that I would have posted or whatever. It's something as simple as they didn't like what I looked like in that photo.
And I'm sure that getting that type of feedback does something to you.
Yeah.
Does something to your confidence. Even Kendall Jenner, I'm sure, getting that type of feedback does something to you.
100%.
How do you feel when you get sort of that type of critical feedback?
I have moments of feeling like I'm breaking or feeling like I can't take it anymore. Because sometimes it does feel I can never do anything right sometimes.
Yeah. You can never please everybody
right.
all the time. So this period of intense anxiety for you, it seems to me it's a perfect example of this sort of separation of yourself. Here's the Kendall at home, little young girl who is now being pushed on the world stage, having to sort of play this role out, knowing that your image is going to be out there for everyone to consume. There's got to be sort of this...
And judge.
So how do you think that has that projection of you in social media, how has that affected your ability to really kind of feel anchored and connected to your, say, authentic self, for lack of a better word?
Right. Well, it's just interesting because there are, first of all, so many images of me on the internet, ones that I'm fine with and ones that I don't necessarily like. You know what I mean? And a lot of the times the ones that I don't like are the ones that get more attention because they're the ones that everyone wants to kind of take and rip apart. So I think that I've become numb to all of that in a way. That took time though, and that took a lot of talking to myself and hyping myself up. And because of social media, everything is highlighted. Everything is heightened, whether good or bad. I feel like most of my social media anxiety is actually more the overwhelmingness of it all.
Overstimulation, right? Where you realize that our brains are really not designed to be bombarded by all the stimulus that's coming our way all of the time.
Right. What is actually what is happening?
What's happening inside our brains, right?
Yes.
I think that the sense of overwhelm is very real, and that there's a point in which the brain can no longer process all the information that's coming our way. And so there's an actual shutdown, very similar to what happens in a trauma response. It stimulates that sort of animal impulse of fight, flight, or freeze response. And if we can't process everything that's happening, then we start to freeze and we start to feel like we're no longer in the world. So there is a sense of derealization that happens. And I think with COVID really keeping young people out of relationships and social interaction,
we don't have that human connection anymore, which I feel like we as human beings need it.
Well, that's the ultimate irony, isn't it? That the internet the social media can really allow us to feel like we have millions and millions of friends in the world, when in reality we could be very lonely right at home. And it's this sense that you start to trade your real life for the imagined life. We're constantly being bombarded by a new role model or by a new standard of beauty or by a new a desire that we just can't quite be adequate enough to meet. And I think this is the dangerous part, where a lot of young people really fall into a hurtful clinical depression that oftentimes leads into either self-harm, addiction. We've seen that addiction has really increased during this time, or, worst, suicide.
I feel like it's something that we're now stuck in. Do you know what I mean? How do we now, there's no reversing.
I hope that one of the things that we learn from this is exactly what you've said, is that there is a need for us to be connected in real time. That kind of content is critical for our well-being. It's part of, it has to be part of our
I think
mental
that's
health.
One of our tips of the day is go give someone a hug. So something that I'm asking all the professionals on this series is just some, tips, tricks, tools that you can that the viewers can take home with them, or they're probably already home, but take away with them and really apply to their life or their lifestyle.
So I would say probably 4 tips. One is being aware of your intention when you engage in social media. Why are you doing it? Why are you connecting? Recognizing that once you put an image out there, you may not always have control over how that image is going to be consumed. I think third, recognizing that addiction is very real in social media and that it operates very much like any other addiction. And so setting some limits, appropriate limits and boundaries is really critical. And I would say lastly is set some time for yourself to really socialize with people.
Yeah.
Stay connected to those that love you and really recognize that no human being is an island.
Yeah.
We are all, human beings who socialize and need to socialize in order to stay protected.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been
Sorry,
thoroughly amazing. I really have enjoyed being here with you.
I think it's interesting because a lot of our conversation about social media was how overwhelming everything can be. And I think even just talking about it was really overwhelming. It's almost a sense of validation hearing it from a professional or hearing it from a doctor of okay, I'm not the only one that's, dealing with these thoughts or emotions and how invasive it feels like in my life. But it's good to be aware of it all, and it's good to talk about it and kind of let it out, and then now you can be aware, process, and hopefully move forward.